Hogstye.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Hogstye. To quote the owner of the Washington football team when he said this one February, Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, that's right. Dan Snyder saying Happy Thanksgiving in like January, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was after the Super Bowl whenever they hired Ron Rivera, right?
Oh, that's right. That is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still want. I don't give him enough credit to say that was a joke. I think he was just nervous.
We
and
will
totally
never
screwed
know.
up.
We will never know if this was a joke or serious.
He'll never admit it. No.
No. Hey, this is Alex, by the way, and that is Steve.
Yeah, sorry.
Jamal is off. It is his birthday. Happy birthday, Jamal. I get not wanting to record a podcast on your birthday.
Jamal turns 19 today.
Yeah, right. I also want to give a quick shout out. Steve, I was in a meeting and my boss was like, "Oh, hey, Alex, I've been listening to your podcast." So shout out to my boss, Jerry.
Let's go. We need to go back and figure out all the awful things you said, though.
If you don't think I spent the next 5 minutes in my head just being like, have I talked any shit about work?
I don't think you ever have, which
No.
is fortunate, probably by accident, because you said bad things about everything else, just not your boss.
Yeah, exactly. But he's a big Skins fan, although I think he's from up in New York, but he's lived down here forever, so in the DC area. And he's
been converted through just the force of the wonderful, the infectious, wonderful nature of this franchise.
Right. So anyway, he's been listening to the show. It means I got to clean up my act.
No more drunken rants.
Alex. Less drunk. Oh, okay. I'm gonna make a note.
Fewer.
Change more to less here in my notes. Okay, we're good.
Just nothing that we have to delete 5 minutes later. That's all I ask.
Exactly. All right. Well, it is a pregame show. It is Thanksgiving Eve for us. If you're listening, happy Thanksgiving. Like I said, we're basically just going to cover the Seattle game because nothing else is really going on. Steve, has there even been any real roster moves this week? I don't think.
There was some. The practice squad has churned a little bit. I wasn't even.
It's the practice squad churns.
Yeah, because it's not anything all that interesting. But since we have nothing else to talk about, other than Seattle, I will bring this up. So right. Anthony Hines, linebacker, and Damian Willis, wide receiver, were both dumped from the practice squad. Sorry to Mr. Hines and Mr. Willis. And then in their place, they signed two interior offensive linemen, Deion Calhoun and Tyler Gauthier. Neither one of them have ever played. Both these guys are 2019 undrafted free agents who've bounced around from practice squad to practice squad and got cut and played that game for a couple years. So this is clearly stemming from the fact that, all of their interior offensive linemen got hurt, against last week against the Panthers. I mean, because, they were at one point down to, I think if you count it right, their fourth string center, because we went from Chase Rouillet to Wes Schweitzer.
Right.
No, sorry. We went from Chase Rouillet to Tyler Larson to Wes Schweitzer to Keith Ishmael, who was a center at San Diego State. So that's four. So they were down to their fourth stringer. Who's going to start now? Only the shadow knows. And by the way, since it's a Monday night game, we don't have an injury report to talk about.
Right. That's true. But we needed to do this because we're not doing this on Thursday.
Before we get into the game, though, I got to say this because it bothered me this much. In the comments section, I noticed yesterday, meaning Tuesday, that you had posted that pecan pie was the alpha of pies.
It is. It is absolutely the best pie there is.
I'm just disgusted. It almost makes me want to quit the show. It really does. I can't describe. I'm normally pretty good with words, and I'm having trouble coming up with the level of disgust I have for that opinion. Really, pecan pie, Alex?
Absolutely, it is absolutely the best of all pies. No other pie comes even close to it. Pumpkin, garbage. Sweet potato, it's pumpkin pie, but made for people who don't understand how to make pumpkin pie. It's even worse.
I agree with you there. Neither one of them are good.
Apple is just generic. Apple's good any day. It's nothing wrong with Apple. It's fine. Cherry's overrated. The most overrated pie is the cherry pie. It has
I
like
will
this
just say
good
this.
metal song about it or whatever, and
Well,
hairband song.
she's my cherry pie. That's Warrant from 1986. Not that I'm
Would
into
that be
that kind of
hairband
music
or
or
metal?
anything. That would be hairband because
Okay,
Warrant was a
hairband.
classic hairband because they look like women.
Right.
You know, their hair's blown out, and
The
there's a whole
leather
big story
pants and all
behind
that.
that song.
Yeah.
The story behind that song is they wrote a song called Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was actually a deep song about two kids who saw a police officer murder somebody and dump the body. And it's probably their best and most well-written song. And the record company went, God, this sucks. You know, this is way too depressing. You're a hair band. And so out of
Cherry
spite,
Pie became the hit.
then they wrote Cherry Pie, which is the most absurd song ever. And the record company went, and they did it as an fu to the record company, and the record company went, hey, this is wonderful.
Oh,
you know?
so it's basically like Creep by Radiohead, where they wrote a song purposely to suck and everyone loves it.
Yeah, that's basically Warrant's version of Radiohead's Creep. Yes. Welcome to the Hairband Hour, kids.
Yes, yeah.
And to Alex's boss, I know you remember this song.
He's got to be in his 60s. So yeah, he that's probably his generation.
But anyway, so I'm not a big pie fan at all. I don't really like any pie, but I think pecan would be ahead of only pumpkin if I was forced to choose, which I don't like any of it.
You've probably never had a good pecan pie, for one. Most people haven't, by the way, because like if you buy pecan pies, they're made wrong. So
just please don't ever invite me over for Thanksgiving dinner. That's all I ask.
Now, I will say my best pie I ever made was a pecan pie, apple pie, layered pie, where it's multiple layers on a pie. It was pretty fantastic.
I think you know me well enough to know that food-wise, if you get too much off of for like dessert-wise, if you get too much away from chocolate chip cookies and ice cream, I'm really you start to lose me.
Those are also delicious.
True.
Yeah.
You know who else eats a lot of chocolate chip cookies?
Who?
Big
Russell
fat
Wilson?
offensive lineman. Yes, and Russell Wilson.
the whole yes. Let's try and transition back to this game we have coming up.
That was a really awful transition, but I had to do it.
Yeah. We were getting on a thing. All right, let's talk about this game. Seattle coming off a loss to Arizona, and Colt McCoy, who apparently everyone made a big deal. He threw 300 something yards against them. Steve, do you want to do stats first? Kind of, we'll breeze through those.
Well, I mean, so what do you want me to do? Seattle offense. So
yeah, just where they're at.
Here's the thing about Seattle offense. This isn't your dad's Seattle Seahawks.
No.
Russell Wilson, yes, had this hand injury, and he bragged about, rehabbing it 21 hours a day or something like that, which is stupid and ridiculous. I think Russell Wilson would be somebody you'd like to punch if you ever had to be around him. But regardless, he's been back for 2 weeks and it hasn't really helped all that much. From an offensive standpoint, they're just bad, kind of all around. 25th in points, 30th in total yards. They're terrible on third downs, or 30th in NFL. They're last in the NFL in time of possession.
Mm-hmm.
Last by not a little, by a lot. They're only averaging.
It's mind blowing to think a Pete Carroll run first type guy that he is would ever be that far down that list.
Yeah, I mean, and 24-44 a game. That's
wow.
Just holy cow, is that terrible? Weirdly enough, they're really good in the red zone. Which doesn't make a ton of sense, but I mean, it is what it is. So if you want to look at who's producing on this team, it's really only at the end of the day, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Beyond that, I mean, you got a couple running backs who are mediocre. You got Collins. He's only averaging 4.1 yards per attempt. I mean, it's the problem with this offense, if you really watch them, is that their offensive line just sucks donkey balls.
It really is bad. Yes.
Yeah. And even Russell Wilson, as mobile as he is, and Colt McCoy is a little mobile too. He's no statue, or not Colt McCoy. Geno Smith isn't a complete statue.
His backup, yes. Geno Smith.
Yeah. They've still surrendered, a butt ton of sacks, and it is.
I think I saw they're averaging something like 6 sacks.
Well, they've surrendered 33, which is 30th in NFL. And if you look at their stats, it's just 3 or 4 a game every week. It's
3 or 4 game.
This offense is not good. However, I mean, the battered and bruised Washington fan in me knows Washington's history on Monday Night Football,
Right.
and they've also been the patron saint of wayward quarterbacks at times.
Sure.
Wayward opposing quarterbacks. And so the big fear I think for Washington in this game is that Russell Wilson has some sudden resurgence because of the curse of Monday Night Football. Other than that, and the other thing is DK Metcalf taking advantage of everybody. I
Right.
mean, those two things are the danger to me.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this offense, I think you're right. The line is a mess, but those receivers they have, DK Metcalf and it's Lockett who's on the other side, right?
Yes, Lockett
Yeah,
on the other side.
those are two very good receivers that you're gonna have to cover all game long. So that my number one concern is those guys. I know they're on their backup running back Collins, who looks like Marshawn Lynch. He's big. He's even got the dreads, but he is not Marshawn Lynch. When you watch him play, he might have a couple good runs, but you can shut him down. So I'm not worried about him. But yeah, those receivers, man, if they can contain them, they'll do okay against this offense. Because Wilson, I think he's at a point in his career. He's not the guy who takes off anymore. He stays in the pocket behind the line of scrimmage. He's looking downfield more, right? Like
more than he did. I mean, if you watch his film from a few years ago, because I studied his film pretty closely when the Redskins signed Paul Richardson.
Yeah, way back when.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's the same. Back then, it was, almost every play, roll out, hold the ball, run around.
Right.
And Paul Richardson, if you guys recall, said something about that in his press conference when he came to DC. Something like, now I have a quarterback who can get rid of the ball or something like that. And he was totally wrong, but regardless.
Yeah.
I think Russell Wilson is more of a pocket guy now, but he's still Russell Wilson. He's not ever going to stand back there and not move,
Well, I mean, look, it's the same thing I've said about Heineke. These short quarterbacks, but because of their height, you need to roll them out. They need to get occasional looks where, it's just open field in front of them. So, like, that's just the nature of, having a quarterback who's under 6'2" or whatever. One thing I noticed watching their game last week is Seattle plays a lot of power looks. It's a lot of, multiple tight end sets. They'll spread them out time to time, but the receivers will frequently both be like within the numbers. Like they're trying to keep everything, really compact when they're playing still. So that's something to watch out for because, if you're talking about this team's weakness, it's going to be the ends on, our defense. So if they're playing run heavy, that takes advantage of our weakness in that respect.
How much of a weakness is it really, though?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I don't want to be Mr. Negative or anything, but this defense had a pretty darn good week last week against the Panthers. And granted, it was the Panthers, and their Panthers offense, stinks, but
they have a good running
really
back.
Miss Chase and Montez that much? I mean, let's be totally honest. Totally honest. And I'm not talking about Chase of last year. I'm talking about Chase Young and Montez Sweat earlier this season. I almost think they're playing more disciplined football without them than with them.
I had a long conversation with somebody about that yesterday. Del Rio really is a scheme over talent kind of coach, it seems like. And because these are, not star players now, they have to adhere to his scheme. And I think that plays into it.
Well, I mean, we just mentioned LeVar Arrington. Was that off here? I can't even remember.
I honestly don't even remember.
We were talking about LeVar Arrington either on this show or off this show, and it was off the show. And one of the reasons LeVar Arrington got gone, other than his contract script, was he just was so undisciplined, would never play within the scheme,
right?
And they got tired of it, And part of me wonders if that's Chase Young. And I know I'm kind of perceived as Mr. Chase Young hater, and I'm really not. But this defense this year has almost performed better without him for a week and a half.
2 weeks. Let's see how that really
it's not
goes.
A great sample size. Don't
No,
misunderstand.
it's not. I mean, look, I think that is a discussion that'll have to happen this off season. That's one I'm sure we'll talk about a lot. Is how much can you change? Chase Young's a freelancer a little bit. Same with Montez Sweat. How much can you change your defensive philosophy to fit two talented edge rushers who are going to do their own thing more? Yeah, and
And I
there's a
don't
way to
think
do that.
they're like LeVar Arrington level
No,
of
they're not that bad, but
no.
so that I think that is a off-season discussion that's going to happen.
Um, the other
Speaking of
thing
edge
on
pressure, one
yeah,
thing I noticed Arizona did very well: safety and corner blitzes to get to Wilson. I'm hoping that Del Rio saw that and just said, "All right, Landon Collins is just going to blitz all day." That's the plan. That should be the
I mean,
plan.
it's still Jack Del Rio we're talking about here.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, every once in a while, he's blitzed Cam Curl a couple times.
Yeah,
I mean, when he strikes up, when the wind blows up his skirt just right, he'll do
right.
it. But it's not, it's, not too often. Landon Collins is a perfect guy to do it, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that worries me, if you're talking secondary, and I realized William Jackson finally had a good game last week. The
Mhm.
secondaries look better, but DK Metcalf is the type of guy that can give Washington a ton of problems. He's 6'4", 235, physical
Yeah.
freak specimen. Is he the greatest route runner? No. He's just not. That's just not his thing. But he's so physically imposing.
Hmm.
I think much like I was talking about a couple weeks ago with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their humongous wide receivers, I don't think DK is a great matchup for Washington. I mean, Ben St. Juste is the only one that's anywhere near his size,
Right.
and I
And
don't
he's,
know.
he's still developing, of course.
Right.
Is Benjamin St. Juste healthy right now? Is he back
Well, we don't
off?
have an injury
Oh, right.
report
We
this
don't have
week,
that
so he
list.
had a concussion. And
Right.
what the status is now, I don't know. So if you don't know what the protocol for concussions is, this. If you have it, and this is NFL mandated, so the teams can't cheat on this. Basically, you have to go to an independent doctor,
Right.
not the team physician, then get cleared for practice, and then do practice for some period of time, and then get cleared by the independent doctor for a game. And so this is not something you can kind of cheat on and this and that. So we don't know yet St. Jude's status.
Yeah, I'm scanning Google News right now, and I don't see anything, any news right now about him. So I guess that's going to be up in the air. That's a big one. If he can come back, not that, like I said, he's a rookie. I don't expect him to contain Metcalf, but he would probably be my first instinct of who to put on Metcalf just because of the size.
If you're going to play man,
Yeah.
maybe. But on the other hand, William Jackson is here to be that guy.
Yeah.
And while I don't disagree with you, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think Jack Del Rio will do what you're suggesting. Jack Del Rio will stick William Jackson on him, because that's what his job is.
See, I think Jackson is a better matchup for Lockett just when you're looking at like size and speed and things like that.
I
That's
agree
just
with
what I
you
would.
wholeheartedly. I'm just saying I think
Yeah.
that's what Jack Del Rio will do is not necessarily the smart thing. That's what I'm saying. I think you're 100% right. You certainly Lockett is a better matchup for him. And then I think really what you really have to do with DK is you've got to slide a safety over to him.
Yeah.
I just don't think anybody, because St. Juste, I mean, like you said, he's a rookie, he's developing. He's been picked on a lot at times.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady picked on him. A lot of teams have picked on him. And the idea of saying, here, congratulations, take DK Metcalf and press man coverage for 60 minutes, go. I mean, that's
Right.
just not going to go well,
No, that won't. That's not ideal. Um, but I mean, really, that is going to be the matchup to watch. It is those two receivers against these corners. If we can cover okay, I think we have a good shot at containing this offense overall.
Yeah, because if you look at rushing overall,
Mm-hmm.
their rushing numbers aren't too bad. They're averaging 4.3 yards per attempt, which doesn't sound horrible at first glance, but I think that's a case of the stats are probably better than what they really are for a variety of reasons.
Right.
Because the principal ball carriers, Alex Collins, they have 231 rushing attempts.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Collins has 94 of them. Chris Carson has 54 of them. Russell Wilson has 24, and so that's it's 148 plus another 24, so that's 172. And so like 2/3 of those are those three guys, and then they've had a bunch of other guys. Had a few Rashad Penny,
Right.
a couple other guys, and um, I just, you know, I just don't think they're as great a rushing team as they once were. Clearly not.
Oh
And
no, no, no.
it
They're
doesn't scare
nothing
me.
like that
What
anymore.
scares me is DK Metcalf more than
Yep.
anything.
Yep.
Just,
Anything else to talk about on their offense, or do we want to flip sides here?
Well, I mentioned where they're really bad. They're bad and terrible in sacks, terrible in time of possession. Look, for the key to the game, truly is this: for offense. For I'm talking Redskins or Washington defense, Seattle offense.
Yeah.
Two things: don't let Russell Wilson have a resurgent game where he gets his career back or his season back. Number one. Number two, it's the battle of the worst on the worst. The worst, still the worst third down defense in the league, even despite last week's better game. Washington is still the worst team in the NFL.
Right.
And then we're going to face the team that's almost the worst in the NFL on offense on third down. Something has to give.
Yeah.
And so what's the key? Get Seattle off the field. Do not be horrible on third down. If they can do that, I would say they're probably going to win this game.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. Two flip sides. Seattle. I heard a Seahawks fan. I think it was one of the guys on 106.7 was saying how Seattle basically does the exact opposite on defense, where they play a lot of bend but don't break. They'll let you go up and down the field. They'll just clamp down in the red zone. That's kind of their philosophy right now.
I really hate that term, bend but don't break, because
I do too, but
what it really means is you're not that good.
Right.
To me. But
well, there are a few teams I can think of that applied that philosophy and actually did it right. Like I think of the old Tampa 2 and like Jim Johnstone and the Eagles back in the early 2000s.
I don't think it was ever a philosophy. It was just that we have a hard time stopping people, but yet when you compress the field in the red zone, certain defenses that have better secondaries, it's a bit easier.
Right. I mean, but they really did that well, though, especially those Eagles teams where they did stop you in the red zone more times than not.
Yeah.
So, there are a handful of teams in history that have that ability. But, yeah, I think it's overused. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about this defense. One thing that I picked up, or two things I picked up on right away watching them. First, the Cardinals were just feasting in the short passing game over the center. I don't know why they went away from it at any point, but I saw it right at the beginning, and then I watched throughout their whole game when I was watching, the replays. They do not cover that center field very well in the passing game. Like, you could pick up 5-7 yards with somebody there almost every down. The other thing I picked up on right away, I don't even know if Seattle knows who their nickel corner is, because I don't think they ever put him on the field. They play more base coverage than I've ever seen. And if you put 4 receivers out there, they'll still probably play base coverage. So that's something to take advantage of.
It's no wonder that Arizona got so many, short over the middle type passes. Take a look at their roster. Has anybody done this but us? Bobby Wagner is there. He's Mr. Future probably Hall of Famer.
But he's getting up there, and
he's getting up there. But he's the only one left from the Legion of Boom days. All the rest of these guys are gone, and in place of them, we've got guys like Benson Mayowa.
Mm-hmm.
I can't honestly say I've ever heard of Benson Mayowa before. Recently until I started studying Seattle. Jordan Brooks. Okay. Their secondary: Sidney Jones, DJ Reed, Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams, is recognizable at least.
Yeah, Quandre Diggs, some talent, but this is nowhere near the days of Richard Sherman and those guys who prowled back there, especially in this, and Woo's on the other side of him. But anyway, point is, I think this is a defense. This is a secondary that Washington can exploit, particularly if they get some guys back. There's been no injury report, but what the reports out of Ashburn are that Logan Thomas and Curtis Samuel will be listed as limited for the first time. Logan Thomas is still on IR, but they could take him off IR if they wanted.
Yeah.
But this is the first time he's practiced at all, basically. So if they get some guys back and divert some attention away from Terry McLaurin against a weaker secondary, they really ought to do fairly well, I think.
Well, and you get either of those guys back. What did I just say is the weak spot? Center, passing, like where your tight end in that, ideal slot guy going to get the most catches? It's right there.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Getting those guys back, you can take advantage of that. That'd be huge. There's so many issues with that Seattle defense right now. It was kind of amazing to watch.
Well, their
they can get some pressure, but that's about it.
But they could get some pressure, but they're not getting home. They've only had 17 sacks on the year. That's ranked 30th. They can get some pressure, true, but they're not getting any turnovers. They're only 4 interceptions. They are +3 turnover ratio, but that's mainly because they've only given up 6 turnovers more than anything.
Right.
4 interceptions on the year. That's it. They're
and mediocre. I think 2 of those are maybe only one of those was against Arizona, but Arizona turned it over a bunch. It felt like.
Yeah. They're mediocre on third down. Opposing quarterback rating 94.9, which is ranked 19th. This is just a far, far, far cry from the Seattle of old, and especially if you take a look at what have they done. Now they have played some good teams.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts are a decent team. They beat the Colts. The Vikings, 49ers, Rams, Steelers, the Saints, depending on what day you catch them. The Packers, and they caught the second string Cardinal team basically and got skunked by the second string Cardinal team. So
yeah.
But some of these teams have put up huge, like the Titans put up 532 yards on them. The Vikings and the 49ers and the Rams and the Cardinals all put up more than 400 yards.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this stuff is passing yards. The 49ers ran against them fairly well. The Vikings ran against them. The Titans ran all over them. That's Derrick Henry before he got hurt. But the Cardinals, the Jaguars, the Saints, the Packers are not running against them. All this damage is coming in the air.
So, I mean, what you're telling me is basically teams are attacking them however they want and probably being fairly effective.
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing there.
I just don't think this Seattle team is all that good. That doesn't mean that Washington isn't going to, poop the bed because it's Monday Night Football and all of that. But what I'm saying is
a West Coast team coming east actually has the advantage in terms of time zone stuff because, for them it's not as late in theory. So,
I mean, you can.
It's a minor thing, but.
And I've always thought it's a bit overrated because you can play with the travel schedule to account for that a little bit. Then come out a day early. It's not like we're going to Tokyo here. It's across 4 time zones. It's not that far. So I just think that the Seattle team, Russell Wilson injury or no, is a legitimate 3-7.
Yeah. They are not good. There's talk, in the media and talking heads, whatever you want to put into that, which is probably not much. There's talk that this is kind of the end of the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson era of Seattle. And there was some talk, if you remember, in the offseason of Wilson wanting out of there. So, it is kind of interesting.
In there now with a ginormous contract.
Yeah, I know. But you do remember there was some talk of that at one point.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's not looking good for them.
I'd like to point out a couple other things.
Sure.
Washington's special teams. This has become the Washington kick returning and punting is become a strength. Punting is always a strength, but I don't know if everybody really realizes just how good DeAndre Carter has been. This team is now 3rd in the NFL in kick returns.
Yep.
25.5 yards per return. And while I was sitting here waiting on Alex to start the show, I noticed that Washington has put out, the Washington franchise, their PR has put out some pleas for people to vote for Pro Bowlers. And the 2 people they're pushing are John Allen, that's obvious. And the other one is DeAndre Carter, who apparently is currently leading the leading vote getter on the kick returner in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
There's a
and
reason
he
for that.
deserves that right now.
Yeah,
Honestly,
absolutely.
he's doing a great job there. Yeah, if you like to vote for the Pro Bowl, go vote for DC1. That's what I say.
Yeah, I usually am pretty honest. I don't just automatically vote for all the Washington players. I only vote
Sure.
for the ones that matter, and and those two guys are legit this year. And you ought to vote for both of them.
I would say those two and Terry. Terry, I think,
Yes.
he's probably not gonna get in just because there's so many good receivers these days. But I said it after last game. If you go back late at the end of the year and watch his highlight reel for this season, it's going to be an all-time great highlight reel because he's made some amazing plays. So he'd be up there for me.
In terms of Washington's offense, I think we'd be remiss in not talking about Taylor Heinicke. I mean, we debated him a little bit on the game recap show, the Carolina game recap show. I'm not arguing he's Washington's franchise quarterback going forward necessarily. What I'm saying is, and I think Ron Rivera said this week, possible that he could develop into that, because if you really think about it, this man has not really played. Yes, he's 29 years old.
28 going on 29, yeah.
But he's not really played in game action before Washington ever. He's gotten dramatically better in the last couple weeks. There's some of the things he had to work on that the expert analyst pointed out. He's holding the ball, mechanical issues. That stuff is all getting better, and this man really does have kind of the it factor, I think. And so what I'm looking for from Taylor this week against a fairly weak defense, keep it up. Keep up the leadership qualities. Keep improving your mechanics. Get rid of the ball quickly and let the receivers do the work. And only scramble when you have to or when it's important. But from Washington, he's just the key to every game right now, I think, is him.
It's true. I mean, and I've kind of felt this way for a while. It's wrong that we're putting all our hopes on the back of some undrafted 28-year-old dude who's coming in to play quarterback. But that's where we're at.
You and I had a little debate on the comment section of our website about this.
Yeah, a little. I mean, and I don't think we're actually that far apart. My larger point about him, and I've kind of stuck by this for a while, is I think he could be an answer for a couple years, but given his age and his injury history, you still need to plan to draft a quarterback, because until you get a guy who gets you a Super Bowl ring, you shouldn't ever assume you have the guy.
I'm okay. Yeah, I definitely think they ought to draft a quarterback, but the real question is, when do they draft him? And that's the part that I think is sort of unknown right now.
We don't even know where we're picking, so that makes.
Well, I know, but even beside that, if we get 8 more games, or what do we have left? 7 more games.
7, yeah.
Well, wait, they're 4 and 6, and so 7. If he has 7 more games where he continues to improve, keeps looking like he's looked the past couple weeks, wouldn't surprise me if they don't draft a quarterback high. And draft one in the back, because you always need to bring in a quarterback probably every year. But it wouldn't surprise me if Ron Rivera forgoes that, if Taylor stays healthy and continues to improve off of what he's done the past 2 weeks. I guess that was my point. I probably said it badly in the comment section, but that was the point I was trying to make.
No, and I think that's fair too. We don't know where they're going to draft or how they're going to finish, and so that there's a larger discussion there. I've got my eye on like 2 or 3 guys who I think will probably be there in the second round, especially if they're not drafting top 10. You're not going to get Matt Corral or one of these top guys anyway. And you don't have the capital to move up.
Malik Willis, the kid from Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I'm not even a big Willis guy, but I
haven't watched him at all. I don't have any opinion on Willis.
I've just watched highlight tapes of some of these guys. I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but I've got a couple guys who I really like. Some of the intangible sides, because if you're really grading Heinicke, what he's great at is all intangible stuff. It's not his arm. It's not the classic QB metrics.
He's got a decent arm, though. Is it John Elway? No, but he's got an average NFL arm at least. and he's becoming
I would
better.
say slightly below average NFL arm.
I'll
Honestly.
call him what you want. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to rank. If you want to rank ball velocity, we can probably find it. But point
Yeah.
is, I mean, he's somewhere in the middle, I think, in terms of arm strength. But the way he plays, the way he sees the field, I think he's getting better and better. And so if he continues to play like this for the second half of the season, I guess I would consider not drafting a quarterback in the first, second, third round, a guy who you feel like you have to start. They draft somebody in the second round, he's the starter. At some point, he's the starter. And I don't know if Washington will do that. And that's why I think it's sort of up in the air right now and dependent on how Taylor plays in the next 7 games.
Well, I mean, look, one thing I also did, because it was a slow day at work that day. I kind of went and looked at all these kind.
Don't tell your boss it was a slow day. He'll give you more work.
Okay, Jerry, it was not a slow day on Tuesday.
You just outed yourself.
Yeah. Dang it. But I was but real quick, I was looking at all these like famous journeyman quarterbacks and guys who were late bloomers. And compared to and I looked at basically 10 names. I could dig it up and find it, and but Fitzpatrick's on there, John Kitna, Kurt Warner, guys like that. The things that stick out. One, Heineke's,
I wouldn't put Kurt Warner in that bucket at all.
In a late bloomer bucket?
Well, late bloomer, but you said journeyman.
Yeah, okay. So I was really looking more at late bloomers than anything else.
That's different. Okay.
Yeah. Most of them started younger, that their coming out was probably 2 years earlier than Heineke's, which is one thing. The window of which they were actually really good, it's usually only about 4 years. Even Kurt Warner, he had a 4-year window in St. Louis, and then everything fell apart for him for 5 seasons until he got to Arizona, which is, and then he had a second, resurgence.
Right.
So, that's something you got to keep in mind too. The window for Heinicke is probably not going to be that big just because of his age and
but I mean,
kind of stuff.
The age is less of a factor for him, I think, because he has no mileage at all.
No, I mean, nor do a lot of these guys that I'm talking about.
But Heinicke's barely even seen the field at all. He's not even in the NFL.
Had a couple big injuries.
Yeah. I guess we can debate this another day. I mean, this is supposed to be Seattle game preview, but I guess as to Seattle, it's the same question it's been for the past 2 weeks. As goes Taylor Heinicke, as goes Washington. The offense. It's as simple as that.
I think so too. And, look, this team is firing on all cylinders. The other team's out of gas. So let's do our predictions and kind of wrap this one up. I'm going to go ahead and just put this out there. I think this is, for Washington, it's not so much a trap game. I mean, it could be, but I think this is one they get, and they get a good win here. The line on this game, Steve, just so you know, it went from Seattle being favored by 2 to Washington's now favored by 1, I believe.
Really? So, because I checked for the Britain game preview that we do. I checked Sunday night, and it was Seattle was -1.5.
Yeah, it's flipped sides.
Okay, I need to check that.
You might want to update that for the actual preview, because I think it has changed that much. I'm going to say Washington takes this one and gets a big win here. I think this is a 27, 28 to 14 type win for them.
I agree with the direction you're going. I mean, Seattle scored 13 points in the past 2 games total.
Yeah.
They got blanked by the Packers against the Cardinals. I mean, what should scare all Washington fans is the curse of Monday Night Football. But
listen, we've lost 7 in a row.
Yeah, but this is another group of players, a new coach.
Yep.
You can't be that superstitious about it. And so if you evaluate, Bruce Allen's gone. A lot of these people that were causing all those bad attitudes are not here anymore. So if you evaluate the game fairly, I think Alex is right, more or less. I don't think they're going to get 28 because that's 4 touchdowns. And so I'm going to go, I think it's, maybe 3 touchdowns and a couple field goals, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go 27-17.
Okay.
But I think you're on the right track, and I think it's going to be a solid Washington win.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a happy Tuesday We'll be exhausted and angry and cranky, but
Because
it'll
we've
be a
got
happy Tuesday.
Hogstye late night that night.
Oh, and I have a lot of work to do on Tuesday.
Listen, I do too.
Jerry.
It's Jerry's fault. See, now my work, I have switched jobs. My work knows I do this show also.
Yeah.
And people have asked me about it. And so I need to watch what I say too on this show, unfortunately, because I have a bigger mouth than you. It's just not infected by alcohol, you know.
Right. Well, and the difference is you use a pseudonym. I do not.
See, you were dumb, and you should have known in the beginning to use a pseudonym.
Yeah, I should have gone by Zed Jackson. That's my fake name I used in college.
Zed Jackson. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Also
So
fueled by alcohol.
Well, that was Steven Zed, and that was our predictions for the Seattle game.
Yep. All right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving, seriously, and we will catch you on Tuesday or I don't know, Wednesday, whenever it gets up there.
Sometime.
All right.
Whenever.
Yes. Later.